play society. Infinite plane, infinite plane, infinite plane, infinite plane. Doing my thing, do my thing, do my thing, do my thing. Infinite plane, yeah. I live on an infinite plane. I live on an infinite plane. They telling me different things. That's the supposed to be pulling strings, but I know they playing the games. Since I found out today, I live on an infinite plane. I ain't playing no games. I'm on a different plane. I live on an infinite plane. Yeah. I know the news is fake. They're trying to choose my fate. I know the views is fake. They pushing the global stage. Fake news on the radio wave. All the hoax, the whole world is a stage. Body double like I'm Saddam Hussein. Doing my thing. Don't want the fame, just trying to make change. They took out my page. But an infinite gang, infinite plane, playing no games. Infinite gang, we ain't playing no games. Infinite plane, I'm on an infinite plane. Infinite plane, the world that y'all living is strange. Cause I'm on an infinite plane. I'm doing different things, yeah, I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. Stay with the infinite gang. Supposed to be pulling strings, but they can't follow the game. I'm on the infinite plane. Infinite gang, man. That's in your mouth, I stay in my place. Infinite plane society, yeah, man. All I do is black roll out, yeah, just do it, man. Can't take us down on this shit, man. You shit, man. Keep it fast, man. Can't do it, man. Taking the word is flat, man. Go up the whole man. Take it down on shit right now, man. Shit, satellites are not real, man. I think satellites are real, man. I don't even know what to tell you, man. I brought the needles and shit, man. They already got it, man. I'm telling you right now, it's all right now. All the hopes, man. All the hopes, man. All the hopes, man. Shout out Ips. What up, bro? Tim out, man. What up, bro? Yeah, man.
All right, we are live. 6/28/2024. Ips Evening Deprogram. And this is the only deprogram. Think about it. Even truthers, even people on the fringe, if they're not media skeptics, if they're not breaking down the media at the basic premise level, then they are in many ways just reinforcing. They're part of the problem. We are joined here by Lesco, HBIC, HLG, Mango Penguins, Diana South, Portal Complex, Ears Up says, saw the SpaceX launch earlier. Yes, SpaceX has been given the contract to shoot down the space station. One of the predictions we made here. Lord Laney says, if penguins could fly, the metascripters wouldn't know what the F to do. All right, we're joined by Ray of Light, Lando Rock, Clockwork 113, Ollie Goering. They're not going to know what to do when the comet hits. Not the comet, the planet killer. The asteroid. The asteroid titled AH 2024. Yep, Auto Hoax 2024. It is a planet killer. It's a world stage upsetter. And I can't say for certain when it's coming, but it's coming. And they won't know what to do. They could hardly handle the flat earth meme. It threw them all into chaos. And they broke YouTube in order to stem the flow of people asking questions regarding the sources of these absurd and extraordinary claims. And what they've arrived at is simply that all they can do is shame and chastise and impugn those who don't trust the news. They haven't provided better evidence. In fact, I see this story about bringing down the ISS as just an excuse, just a way, hey, we got to get this thing out of the way because this is a jalopy. This thing is holding us back. You know why we're not going to Mars? Because the space station looks so fake. And if they're going to bring in the next level of special effects, a new iteration, they have to get rid of the old stuff, or it looks fake by comparison. And this is a problem. You have to remember, we're talking about outer space as a simulation. And if the entertainment looks more realistic than the simulation, it begins to become very noticeable and pronounced. And with the movie ISS, which was released on 1/19, significantly, they had to dumb down the effects. It's like they didn't know how to make people float. No hair floating around. They dumbed it down, they stripped it down so they wouldn't make the ISS look bad. The ISS is an obstacle, so they're going to have to pull it. They're going to have to WTC7 the thing. Diana South says, I was reading PS 18. I believe everything in the Bible has already happened. The whole modern day eschatology is misleading. Yeah, it's this choose your own apocalypse reality. And everybody assumes they treat it like it's the end of the world. And the most scientific minds right now believe we are in the end times. If you don't believe we're in the end times, then you don't believe the science. But I talk about religion here in the context of how it is used, how people really act on it today. I know some people are moderates and they don't believe in all the extreme stuff, but yeah, you're not players on the world stage. The people representing the faith are much more engaged. And it's really apparent now that MAGAism is using all the trappings and tricks of the trade and the pageantry of a religious cult. It's a cult of personality around Trump. Nicotrama says you got to talk about the debate. What did they even debate? It was like comparing talking points badly. But did they even debate anything? It was not even a debate. It was a tit for tat. I was just not impressed by really anything. And to be honest, they ceded the loss. They admitted Trump won before it started. Like, we can't have Trump here with an audience because he'll make them laugh. He'll bounce off them. They know him so well that they had to make it safe for Joe Biden. I mean, that's just pathetic. It could have been so much more entertaining. And I want to point out, I'm not into this whole mask thing with Joe Biden. I don't think he's Jim Carrey, but I've never seen a human being that looks like Joe Biden, like in person. I know there's makeup, there's lighting, but his expressions, it looks like an animatronic. It looks like synthetic skin. It just it doesn't look the slightest bit real to me. Does anybody else have that problem? Okay, let's move on here. Look, I'm not into religion or beliefs, and that's because I think higher of what we are. I don't think we're meant to be mystified and confused. I don't think we're meant to. And I arrived at this by looking closer at the various secret societies and how they operate, and the oaths that go into these things, and the very premise that everyone outside is in the dark and we're keeping them there. We have the light. And we have a guy at the door with the sword. Nobody gets in to see the light. You have the initiated interpretation, and then you have the exoteric for the profane. It's an elitist structure. And I see all religion as part of the problem, because religion is a system of turning people into believers. Believers are sheep. Believers are sheep who are satisfied with explanations from the authority. What about seekers who want to know, who don't trust the authority? So again, I just reject the argument from authority, whether it's a screen with corporate news, corporate / government propaganda, or if it's from a holy book that somebody says is divinely inspired. Like I'm rejecting all of that at face value. I just don't see any need for it. And here's why. We are quarantining a segment of media consumers who are adopting a skeptical posture. And not only that, but we are organizing as a self-aware demographic of skeptics. And if we let in any group of people, any group of believers in, they're going to outnumber us. Believers outnumber knowers. The programmed outnumber the programmers, obviously, but the deprogrammed are also outnumbered by the programmed. So when I say believers, I'm saying programmed. I'm deprogrammed. I'm a skeptic. I'm not a believer. We're fostering, we're fomenting a culture of disbelief. So if you're a believer, you are programmed, bottom line. And I want to break away from that. Metascriptors are writing the program that guide the world according to their prefabricated history. They do script our history, they write our history, and they play it out like a reality TV show on the world stage day by day. There's a great deal of worldview control. There's a monopoly on it, and I'm rejecting it. And what I recognize here is that there are various ways that they monopolize worldview itself, which is your concept of the world. And it's by putting you through filters. Every holy book is a filter. Every ideology is a filter. Media itself is a filter. So here we are quarantining ourselves to be separate from the programmed. If we let in one group, let's just say, hey, look, we're all auto-hoaxers and skeptics, but let's let the Mandela-affected people here. Guess what? We're going to be outnumbered by the Mandela-affected. Now, if you're Mandela affected, you're not a pure skeptic. You set it aside for this one issue. Well, now we're outnumbered by people who are susceptible to certain logical fallacies, to certain mind games, and they're not going to be pure skeptics. What I'm saying is like there's an operating system here that we've adopted that has replaced belief systems, which are all interchangeable. So I'm here to reject belief systems that are plugged in to the world stage's metascripts. We're operating here from a very, not just skeptical, but the position of a seeker. It's a very curious position. It requires a lot of investigation and thinking and reflection. Suspension of judgment. I'm not taking a hard stance. Oh, I think the earth is flat underneath an inverted salad bowl, and God's on top, and it's underwater, and God's using it as a footstool. Or whatever they're saying from the Bible earth perspective. Like, I am not even close to saying that. I'm not even convinced that the earth, if it's not what they say, if it's not the ball earth model, I don't have any reason to have a starting point that it's an object floating anywhere. Space could just be up. But my point here is that I'm not arriving at conclusions until I have enough information, and nobody's going to goad me or pressure me or rush me into making a decision. There should always be an opt-out. I don't know. Jiff or Jiffy, I don't know. You don't have to fall for one or the other, and that's how a lot of this thing works with the news media. They give you so much news every day that most people just accept it like osmosis. They allow themselves to be submerged in the sea of irrelevance. Meanwhile, we at the IPS are on a raft atop the sea of irrelevance, undisturbed by it, unconfused. But yes, I would point out here that religion has always been, I think, controlled opposition, obviously. They want to make sure that anybody who has any kind of connection to something higher is going to be grafted into this system. They have the best artists. I mean, you look at the propaganda, it's magnificent. We've been watching Fallout, Breaking It Down, Oppenheimer. We look at all these different movies in the context of the metascript and how there's no meaningful distinction, and this is not hyperbole. There's no meaningful distinction to be made between the Hollywood, the video games, the comics, the news, and the politics. It's all one. And it's global. It's global. You have to remember, the space program is a universal religion. It's a universal heaven. Everyone's already accepted it. We already have it. There's a one world religion. It's not coming. We're already living it. Just replace the word religion with the phrase worldview. Or worldview monopoly. Okay, let's continue here. Mango Penguin says, I'll take a press pass. Yeah, you can go to Ko-Fi and order a press pass, and they're going to become more relevant soon. Next month, we're going to start kicking off these monthly Auto Hoax meetings, and I'm not calling them conferences, because conferences generally involve socializing and kind of participating in this echo chamber environment, which is fine. It's fun and all that. And I've been to conferences, and I think it is kind of useful, but I'm more interested in public forums. Like, let's have a dozen people that we invite on the other side, and let's talk about very specific issues. Let's do debates. A live stream, but in public, online, and also in the Meetverse. That has to happen next. And so I'm making preparations for that, and it's going to be the way that we move the Auto Hoaxology 101 book around. Okay, continuing. J Dig says, I still think Trump will win once the obvious steal gets sorted out. Now, do you believe that the election was stolen? Or do you believe that it was scripted to be a stolen election? Because it is pretty obvious from predictive programming that January 6th wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't like, oh, they stole the election, now let's do a January 6th. No, January 6th was on the program back when Waco was torched. Back when Dave Koresh was incinerated or shot, whatever happened, when they burned that place down, the Waco event, the Waco siege, the 1.6 million rounds the ATF was after, yeah, that 1.6 million rounds was one of the early clues, but there are many more leading up to it. This entire January 6th narrative has its roots way back there at Waco, Timothy McVeigh. So it wasn't spontaneous, and it was going to happen anyway, is what I'm saying. So this story of the election, 11-3, this big dispute, this is all scripted. You shouldn't be on the edge of your seat with the expectation that this is going to. I mean, I guess you could be. I mean, I don't want to offer this spoiler because it is kind of a spoiler to say it's all fake, but yeah, it's. How do we describe it? Yes, it's an imposition, it's fake, it's rigged, we'll say. It's a rigged reality. It's like wrestling. It's more fun when you don't know it's rigged. Oswaldo says the debate showed us the Trump head wound is officially a go. Nicotrama says all scripted, no politician has power. I was open to the possibility in 2016 that Trump was rogue. That this is a guy from the outside. That was the story. Oh, he's a businessman from the outside who is getting into politics. And he was anti-media. He was basic pandering, I guess, to the 4chan, the meme crew. It just seemed like he was someone who was irreverent. And he was going to be a reformer. That was what they sold us anyway. That's what was sold. But after Parkland went down and Vegas and Parkland, we had these, and then the Starman in space. When these fake things kept happening, I started asking my Q friends. It's like, I thought you were saying that Trump was going to reveal this stuff as fake. And they said, no, no, no. They'll use the 25th Amendment. They'll throw him in an insane asylum. So he can't tell the world that it's fake, but he knows it's fake. And he'll tell us through Q. So they're satisfied being in the know about the big secret that nobody can talk about. And I just didn't fall for it. I'm like, you guys are just following a Pied Piper. And Musk is another example. They're following Musk too. Musk, it's like, is he truly right wing? Is he truly worried about any of the fears the right has? Does he really believe that the world is running out of people, depopulation is a thing? Is he a free speech champion? Well, no, he's one of the premier space fakers. He's like the world's one of the top liars. You know, and this is not an exaggeration. Who are the biggest liars in the world? Like, who tell the biggest lies? The people in the space program. They tell the biggest lies. And Musk is amongst those. He is in the space papacy. You could say he's probably the world's biggest liar. Anyway, let's continue. Nicotrama says 2016 was the last time politics would fool me. Well, Trump was fake irreverent. He's not real irreverent. And that's my whole point. He's there to protect the system. He doesn't challenge the system. And I find a lot of the people on the right these days just disingenuous attention seekers, clickbait politics. And none of it has any substance. And I look at some of these characters, it's like Nick Fuentes. He shouldn't exist in 2024. Like, he should have ended in 2016. Like, what is he even doing anymore? His entire life has just really been this internet persona of this white nationalist. Now, here he is, a 40-year-old virgin, and he's espousing all these hateful, toxic, misogynistic, racist views, and he's been doing this for years and years, and now he's adopted Trump's mannerisms, where Nick Fuentes is talking and he's doing the invisible accordion with his hands out and his fingers splayed like Trump does. It's like, how far do you think you can get by imitating Trump as a career when you have no real life experience outside of the internet? A lot of these characters are just way past their expiration date. So I'm not all that thrilled about this election. Musk is awesome, says we. I'm crazy about the guy, a real hero. Well, he's a big liar, though. Not only that, but he's complicit with the whole green agenda. And again, he is part of the infrastructure of deception, of this world stage construct. There's a reason why he's blamed for the space junk. He's the leading, I think he is the leading polluter of low Earth orbit. But they're also conflating that with X and how he has unleashed all the racists on X and the Nazis, which is true. But he did so by design. For the same reason, because they want everyone in the world to look at America and look at the richest man and say, look, this rich man has too much power and influence, and he has destroyed our commons, cyberspace and low Earth orbit outer space. Cyberspace connects us all within our mind space. So he's releasing mind junk as he does space junk. As above, so below. This is a big psyop. And, maybe some people are very attracted to sociopaths and liars. They're charmed by it. They find him charming. And personally, I don't know if I do or not. Like, crisis actors, sure, they're tricking us, but are they really the good guys? Can you consider them to be the good guys? For example, if space is fake and you're saying it's real and you're an authoritative source on the subject, you're convincing people that space is real. But what comes with that? Space wars, space junk Armageddon, Chinese space lasers, more things to fear, planet killing asteroids. So I would say that he is a propaganda platform, and everything that he is promoting into the world, everything that he is a fount for, is in fact part of the bigger world view or the model they've given us, which is fallacious. That's what I mean by liars. Okay, let's continue. Oswaldo says there's talk of Democrats replacing Biden with Michelle Obama at the Democrat convention. New York Post is supposedly demanding he steps down. I don't know if he will or not. He gave a speech, a stump speech this morning, and he kind of made up for it in the eyes of the left. They had him come out and fix it. Okay, let's continue. I guess the highlight of the night was this. A lot of QAnoners were convinced that they were looking at JFK Jr. A little older now. Looks a little tired, but he's still there fighting the deep state. So JFK Jr. was there, which got them all happy. Or is this John Stossel? Turns out that John Stossel has been confused with JFK Jr. Everybody's JFK Jr. But that was the highlight of the night. And I was going through the comments to see, do people really fall for this? And they really do. I'll give you an example. I'm not sure, she says. Looks like someone very loved and famous. Holy S, you're playing with my emotions. This will be our vice president. This is getting good. I need to see the original tweet from Elon. Chow Kareen says, JFK Jr.? Trump did say his VP will be in the room. So all these people are fawning over John Stossel, who is not JFK Jr. Who's going to tell them? I have more examples. This person here, QAnon Ginger, says, it doesn't quite match up in my opinion. What do you think? So, yeah, they're still debating it. They're still debating whether or not John Stossel is JFK Jr. NASA said something truthful yesterday. This might be the first time they didn't lie. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. NASA commercial crew manager Steve Stitch made a statement. He said, quote, there are no new issues to report today about Boeing's Starliner. I want to make it very clear that Butch and Suni are not stranded in space. And as Kevin Mooring pointed out, it's because they're not in space. They're in a movie studio down here on Earth. So no, they're not stranded in space, technically speaking. But that is the story. They're stuck in space for the time being. And then this, Elon Musk has been given permission to destroy the ISS. Musk's SpaceX will build a vehicle to tow the ISS back into the atmosphere and crash it into the ocean. Like the Titanic, it's going to sink. And this is all symbolic. This is all part of a ritual. The space station has been occupied since the year 2000, and it's done more than 3,300 scientific experiments above our heads. It can only run until 2030 at the latest. Elon Musk has been given £666.4 million to do it. Or 843 million, but 666 pounds. So they're going to crash land it into the ocean. Probably the pole of inaccessibility, where Point Nemo is, 20,000 leagues under the sea, where Cthulhu fell, where he has his dead city, where NASA drops all their dead satellites, the cemetery, the spacecraft cemetery. Okay, anyway, it says they're going to transition to commercially owned stations closer to home. Right, because their special effects are an embarrassment. And there are some people who are willing to embarrass themselves and say they believe the ISS is real because of the video. All it means is that you haven't looked at it, or you can't tell real from fake. You can't tell terrible graphics from reality. And by the way, this is from yesterday. Again, this is a big deal. About 2 months ago, I was talking about the movie Megaopolis coming out, and how Francis Ford Coppola said that they delayed the movie because it had 9/11y scenes in it. You know, hijacked planes, flying into buildings, New York. The whole thing. The whole thing about Megaopolis was kind of put off because of 9/11. Was that prescient? Was it predictive programming? Anyway, whatever it was, he decided not to move forward with it. The next 9/11, as we have been saying on this channel for some time, is going to involve outer space. It's going to be from space. We've been saying this for some time. I've also suggested, based on the Metascript clues, that Russia would be involved in taking down the ISS. So here we have this, and that's the story in the movie ISS. In the movie ISS, there's mushroom clouds blowing up on the ground. America and Russia mutually assured destruction. They're nuking each other. Meanwhile, as that's going on, there's a fight in the ISS to see who's going to control it, the Americans or the Russians. So this is already kind of an ongoing conversation. And we have the story, Russian satellite breaks up in space, forcing ISS astronauts to shelter. So an old Russian satellite, and I'm sure this is going to, we're told it's a coincidence, but we're probably going to find out this was intentional. It was negligence. They let it happen. They had to shelter in place within the ISS because of this old satellite breaking apart. So why this is significant is that we've already talked about this movie, this by Francis Ford Coppola, Megaopolis, having 9/11 predictive programming, how the next 9/11 is going to be a space 9/11. Well, his movie, we're talking about his movie Megaopolis, has a scene related to aged Russian satellites falling to the Earth. So what are the odds? You can look at the headline here from Vanity Fair. Francis Ford Coppola's Megaopolis. The script always had an element of aging Soviet satellite falling out of orbit, falling to the Earth. So we're looking at what looks to be clues. And there's been a lot leading up to this. The next 9/11 is going to be ISS related. We've often talked about this. And one other point. I mentioned how on 3/11/2021, NASA dropped the largest piece of space junk ever. And I said it's a 3/11. This means that the next major thing is going to be from space. And we've been vindicated because the family that's suing NASA $80,000 in damages for mental anguish and home repairs because of a piece of space junk hit their house, that piece of space junk has been traced to that specific drop, 3/11/2021. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, would you consider Oliver Stone a metascripter? Yes. Anybody handling these narratives, they're not rogues. They're 100% metascripters. They have to be in on it at a certain point. Buzzing Fret says Red Dawn in outer space. Yeah, I would say so. And there are a number of indicators that we could point to. And this has been building up for some time. Dewis in Paris says, I know Musk is part of the agenda based on how good his internet is. Well, he's basically cosplaying as a rocket surgeon slash entrepreneur. He's kind of an amalgamation of characters. We often talk about this. You know, a bit of Willy Wonka, Tony Stark, Iron Man, Emperor Constantine, Jack Parsons, Werner von Braun. But I would even add to that, when we're looking at the whole character of Musk, I would add Henry Ford. And it has been noted that there are connections. You know, the Ford T model, and then you have the Tesla. And that T connection was actually pointed out to me by, I believe it was by I have a tweet from him. Let's see if I can find the actual link, because there were a few other connections we were making here. But we were talking about the different characters that make up Musk, and there are some overlaps with Henry Ford. You know, Henry Ford bought a newspaper, the Dearborn newsletter, where he was basically posting anti-Jew stuff, the same stuff that Musk lets on Twitter. It was Messianic Charlatan who pointed this out, that the T model may relate to this connection between Ford and Musk. In fact, let me look this up. Musk, Henry Ford. You can see what I'm talking about because this has already been noted. Elon Musk and Henry Ford, the dark path to extremism. Elon Musk shaping up to be this generation's Henry Ford. Legacies of industrial revolution and public controversy. I think these are all just basically, I guess, attributes that they attach to these characters. Is Elon Musk destined to become Henry Ford? Because if you listen to how he talks about space and SpaceX, he's very von Braun. But when he gets a little eccentric about stuff, he sounds more like Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka. He's going to send 1 million people to Mars. But when you look at his historic role with X, and remember, X is a cross, and he put the blazing cross on Twitter headquarters. And what did Constantine have a vision of before he decided to consolidate the empire under one sign? He saw a glowing cross. And this is during the dog days of summer. Musk put the phrase out there, blaze your glory. All of this ties into the dog star. Of course, the dog days of summer is serious. But this was just another one of these scenes that shows you that Musk has a bigger historic role. And you could correlate Constantine and the transition into serfdom to our movement into the space age, which has always been space communism. And nobody's going to Mars. You're not going to a communist Mars base. They're going to build it here on Earth once they demonstrate that it is perfect and sustainable out there on Mars. This is the plan. This has been the plan since Red Star was published in like 1906, the Russian rocket pioneers. They were all about space communism. Okay, let's see here. Mango says, did you hear about Oklahoma public schools making the 10 Commandments mandatory? More books. Yeah, I saw that. It'll be interesting to see if they can enforce it. I mean, some of these, like, don't lie. I'm sorry, but everything that comes out of the mainstream media is predicated on lies, the tacit acceptance of lies. We are a society of liars. That's just the truth. We are programmed with lies. And now, to the extent that you're deprogrammed, and the extent to which you cease lying to yourself, you cease self-gaslighting, yeah, you're less of a liar. But no. We live in a world of lies and deception, so no, that's not going to happen. But this is also part of this purposeful dialectic that they set up, the schism. They need the right wing to believe in traditional concepts of God and sin and old flood myths. They need the left wing to believe in Gaia and viruses and injectable Eucharists and climate change eschatology. That's all it is. Left and right, moral panic versus panic about pandemics. But each one is afraid of the other side. Each one wants to quarantine from the other side. Each one thinks the other side is damned and they're saved. Mind war. And I don't participate. I'm a conscientious objector. You know, if you're a voter, you're in the mind war. You're a foot soldier. If you're part of a religious organization or you're a believer in mainstream news, yeah, you're a foot soldier. You're fighting the info war. You're part of the resistance. And the thing is that resistance is futile. The anti-position is just as controlled and fallacious as the pro-position. I'm anti-pro and anti-anti. I get flack. Some people still give me flack because I'm not platforming anti-vax anymore. It's like, sorry, but I'm anti-vax. And I'm not going to platform pro-vaxxers because I'm anti-pro-vax. So if you have an agenda that's anti, that's your agenda. I don't have one. And if you have an agenda and you're not getting paid for it, you've been duped into becoming a propaganda mule. And you're weighed down by a bunch of red pills in your saddlebags and you're walking around chasing a carrot on a stick, which is just hopium. No substance. Nicotrama says if you're a voter, you're a part of the mind war, you're a foot soldier. Exactly. But I'm not going to protest and say I'm not voting, because protesting the vote is actually a world stage position. Voter non-participation is not a challenge to the system. To challenge it, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. And I'm going to vote for him because I know that the whole thing is rigged and fake and doesn't matter anyway. But truthers are still under a spell. Truthers have somehow been grafted into the GOP. Like, oh, I'm a red pillar. I believe in chemtrails. Let me vote for Donald Trump. And the QAnoners. All these conspiracy theorists have been sold on the idea that Donald Trump is their savior. The problem with this is you're voting for, or you're taking part in what is inherently a deception. You're a participant. You're a LARPer. It's like wearing a mask and locking down. You're complying. And non-compliance isn't enough of a statement anymore, because now you're going to be mixed in with people who are just not satisfied with the false choice. So in order to really protest this, I have to publicly vote for Biden, because anybody on the truther side who has a problem with it will have to confront the fact that they're suggesting that it matters. And I'm making the point it doesn't matter. Okay, let's continue. Mango says, everyone is related to a dupe, and that's funny. Yeah, it's clown world, and we are all dupable. I like to use the analogy of a magic show, because it's not about your intelligence, it's about perception and the limitations imposed on your perception. So if you're at a magic show, the only reason you fall for it is the limitations. You have to sit in your seat. If you didn't, you could walk on the stage and find out how the trick was done. So you agree to the limitations, you agree to let the magician frame the trick. And from the perspective of the audience, you can't see through it. It's a sleight of hand, sleight of mind, optical illusions, misdirection, all sorts of tricks go into it, but you are tricked. You're duped. You can't see through it. It tricks your senses. It doesn't mean you have to accept it as magic. Sophisticated or adults, sophisticated audience members will know that just because I can't prove how he did it doesn't mean it's magic. Yet when it comes to the mainstream media, it's all a magic show. And if truthers or conspiracy theorists can't figure out how they faked it, they assume it's real. And that's not true. It's a magic show. Like, I can't figure out how they did 9/11 jumpers. Therefore, people died. No. You are sitting in your recliner looking at the screen, making an assessment based on that evidence, based on that limited perspective. You have to get out of your seat. You have to look at different sources, which is what we've done. And we haven't just, stood up and wandered around this stage. We've gone backstage, we've read their books, and we're continually investigating and trying to understand this, because we are a society that has been visually lied to. And so most of the lies we tell as a society of liars are the result of see-say. I saw it on the screen, therefore it's true. Hearsay, you hear it, so you say it like it's true. See-say is the same thing. Interestingly, I coined the term see-say, and I put it in our dictionary, in our lexicon. Less than a month later, the Department of Homeland Security stole it from me. They created a hashtag see-say, and they said, if you see something, say something. In other words, report suspected terrorism to the DHS, the ones who fake it. See-say day. I was like, well, they really just co-opted one of our words. Diana South says, I worked during the COVID. I was exposed to most TV, news, theater, magic show. It felt like I was in a Hitchcock movie. You were in a movie. It was a live-action role-playing game. It was a movie. And we live... See, what they have done, and this is fascinating, is that they have made it possible to turn the physical world into the world stage at any time. They can merge the movie world or the television news, which is prefabricated and fake, with the real thing, but it requires our compliance and participation. Thank you, Nicotramus. The IPS appreciates the support. He says the debate was a big deal. It ushered in a new era of the Trump script. It's official now. Now we just need Garrow's prediction on 8/4. You may be right. The end result of it may be that Trump is now seen as a threat and inevitable, and they have no choice. That may well be. And Garrow has come back and re-examined his scenario, and he suggested that based on his interpretation of the beast in the sea, the head wound could precede the destruction of Seattle. And based on the predictive programming and concurrent programming, man in full civil war, and everything else, I'm more inclined to think it's going to happen now. And the debate was a big deal in that sense because we have been gaslit for about 8 years about Joe Biden. We're like, okay, this guy is clearly not all there all the time. And it's not ageism. We're looking at this as potential elder abuse. Like, does he know he's being used like this? Is he coherent? And at times he seems like he is. I'm not here to diagnose it, but I'm just saying we point it out, they minimize it. And they try to gaslight you and say, no, you're not seeing any evidence of decline. You're not seeing him sniffing kids. You're not seeing this. They're constantly putting it out there that those people calling it out are politically motivated and that we're being malicious. Well, now, even Mike Rothschild is out there saying that we're being gaslit by the mass media. That surprised me, to be honest. It forced him to be a little honest. Let me see if I can find that post. But after last night, it's hard to deny it, or so I thought. And I thought maybe this is the end of Biden. But then he did some stump speech this morning, and everyone is acting impressed by it on the left. It just seems desperate to me, though. The whole thing seems desperate. Here's CNN. You can hear them reacting to it. It's not just panic, it's pain.
There is no two ways about it. That was not a good debate for Joe Biden.
Ben? That was painful. I love Joe Biden. I work for Joe Biden. He didn't do.
As Van Jones. We says still on the head wound. Does this have an expiration date? Well, this is the thing. These aren't predictions. These are, or they're not like guesses. What I should say is we're looking at foreshadowing. So we're looking at the news not as real, like they're actually reporting us facts, that there's a screen that is a window to the world. No, it's a filter. The media lies, bottom line. You cannot efface this fact. So when we're talking about predictive programming, we're talking about narratives that have been inserted into the fake history, and we're talking about things that haven't happened yet because we're prescient, because we have foreknowledge, because we know how this works. So the reason we're still talking about it is because we know what's coming. Why would we want to efface that? Why would we want to pretend like we don't know what's coming so we don't overreact? That's specifically what we do on this channel. And it's not about predictions like prophecies from a spiritual sense. It's not like that at all. Like, we could go back in time. If we had a time machine, go back to the year 2000, we could spend night after night, hour after hour, just talking about predictive programming for the Twin Towers going down. 9/11, Twin Towers, they're falling. There's all kinds of scenarios in which this could go down. It's in all the movies, and movies that haven't come out yet are all about it, like Collateral Damage. We've talked about this endlessly, the lone gunman, etc. And we would say, okay, well, then it makes sense that this event would follow what is tantamount to just propaganda and advertising for a future event. So here we are analyzing predictive programming for the Trump head wound, which we're not the ones making it up. It's there. It is objectively there. It is real. We're talking about what is there. So are we still on it? Yeah. But you got to talk. I mean, if you have a complaint about it, you got to talk to Netflix. Ask Netflix why they repurposed the Tom Wolfe novel to be about Donald Trump and why they killed him at the end. Or why the movie Civil War was just killing Trump at the end. Why every major influencer on the right has brought up this scenario repeatedly. It's on repeat. It's not us. We're just pointing it out because we notice things. And at this point, it needs to be emphasized that we're not noticing things just to ignore it. I'm not saying, hey, this is fake, ignore it. It's like, no, this is fake. Investigate it. Find out what's behind it. I'm not a low information non-believer. It's not like, oh, I saw an indicator that this could be fake. Let me just gloss over it. No, I'm a high information non-believer. I'm an informed disbeliever. I need to know why it's not real. And so what we are doing here is we are pre-auto-hoaxing. We are pre-deconstructing the next 9/11. So before it even happens, we're very well appraised of what it's going to do. And we're going to be the ones with level heads, just like we were at COVID. Every other truther got lost in anti-vax propaganda. We didn't. Everyone else fell for it. We didn't. Why is that? We're like, they're talking about they're killing people with ventilators in the hospitals, and we're like, no, the hospitals are empty, and so are the tents. And that's because we have an understanding of what predictive programming is. So the reason we're pointing out this Trump thing, and you'll thank us for it later, is that when it goes down, you're not going to be confused, you're not going to be scared, and you're not going to be triggered, while everyone else around you is going to lose their crap. And they will, because they're programmed. What we're doing here is we're deprogramming, we're inoculating your mind against the mind war itself. And if you don't have critical thinking, you can catch mind viruses. They want the masses to have MAIDs, no mental immune system, mind aids. They want them to be eminently infectable by whatever they promulgate that day. But what this does, what skepticism applied toward mass media as a monolith does, inoculate you. It provides a space, a distance, we're socially distanced from the screen, a space and time before we accept any premise that's not attended by evidence. Leaves us belief free. We know what we know, and if we don't know it, we have questions, not false explanations. But spoiler alert, it's not going to be a death wound. And I can point to James Cameron, I can point to, man, there are a number of directors I think might be behind this one, but I'm going to focus on Cameron. I think Cameron is going to be a major player in this. And it all ties into the connection between the Terminator, the one-eye symbolism, what that means, and Ground Zero, and the movie Collateral Damage, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Titanic, and where he was on 9/11. I mean, it's really intriguing when you get into it. Like, I have enough now to put forth the theory that the metascriptor behind the Rodney King beating was James Cameron. He directed it. Okay, moving on. I'm going to play this one clip, okay, because this is what I mean. When this debate, which isn't really a debate, but it did put on full display, in stark contrast, the mental acuity of Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was savage here. I have to say, he really knew how to use the power of silence by not saying anything, by letting Joe Biden just hang himself. I think he did win this thing. Here's a clip.
The total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country.
Yeah, I don't think he knew what he said either. Nobody knew what he said. And this is why they wouldn't let Trump have an audience, because everybody would have laughed, because it's true. And ridicule is powerful. Tomorrow is Saturn Day, so we'll have open phones. It'll be much, much longer. We'll probably be live for about 3 hours tomorrow. Phones are still open for the next 10 minutes if anybody has anything to say. Okay, let's see here. That was probably the best scene of the night. Okay, there's a few more things. I believe they're arresting the police chief from Uvalde, or they're charging, here it is. Breaking, the former school police chief at Uvalde has been indicted on charges of child endangerment for his role in the botched response to the deadly shooting at Robb Elementary. There's a couple of things that I could point out here. One of them is that fake dead kids' lives don't matter. I told this to Alex Stain, who went to Uvalde to rant at the city council members about what happened. And he blocked me on Twitter for telling him that fake lives don't matter. But he thinks they do because he's part of the fake media. Well, the Robb School Elementary is one of these events where they want to show you that no, good guys with guns can't save us. These AR-15s are too powerful. So they want to show you that the police are useless. They do this in a lot of the PSYOPs. But the right-wing shootings, like, I'm not going to say right-wingers doing it, but like the ones that appeal to right-wingers, where it's a lefty shooting them, like, for example, when Audrey Hale shot up the Christian school, right-wingers love that one, because a good guy with a gun stopped the bad guy with a gun. But when it's a left-leaning, see, these PSYOPs are partisan. The school shootings benefit the left wing. The church shootings, the recent ones anyway, motivated by leftists, are being used to benefit the right-wing narrative. It's fascinating to watch because both sides do psyops. Neither side calls out the other side's psyops because they're part of the same apparatus. This was an eye-opening for me when I realized that the reason why the NRA is giving so much airtime to the other side and acting like they have equal or valid opinions, rather, the reason why they're not calling it out as psyop propaganda is because they're part of it. Armalite gave out, what, $73 million? Because they're part of it. Alex Jones, $1.5 billion. It's because he's part of it. Okay, let's continue. Catching up on your comments. Nicotrama says, notice there was no audience. My bet the debate was recorded in advance. Why would they do it live? Everything needs to be right. Could have been. I mean, I'm just going to... I mean, it's possible. Is it fakeable? I mean, there was a 2-minute delay, so we don't know what really transpired. A 2-minute delay. That's pretty significant. So I guess you have a really good point there. And having no audience was a good way, I think, of just making sure that Biden had a better shot at not looking like he's being trolled by Trump. But the main talking point that came out last night, panic. Biden surrogates wake up to post-debate panic. Chuck Todd, Democrats full-on panic. Babbling and hoarse Biden sends Democrats into panic. Deep panic. Elite panic. Panic ensues. Democrats panic. This all came out at 4 a.m., some kind of talking point. So it could be an engineered event. You know, it could be a purposeful reveal so they can justify some major plot change. I don't know. I have no expectation. You know, Kamala Harris or Michelle Obama or American Psycho, Governor Newsom, I kind of don't think so. I think they're going to move on with Biden. It's just that they don't put a lot of effort into some of this stuff. I mean, Q fizzled out, and JFK never showed up. I'm so disappointed. Aliens never showed up. Okay, let's move on. Nicholas Pitt says DARPA's budget is $4.369 billion, and they only have 250 employees, 100 of which are project managers. Oh, nice. Synchro says the clip of Trump talking about his wounds. Yeah, that's some of the things he says are just really kind of strange. Like, what the hell is he talking about? But if you think about it in context, we're talking about the meta script. He's planting seeds. These words get put into headlines. So here he is at a faith conference, and he's talking about how if he took his shirt off, we would see all the wounds on his body.
If I took this shirt off, you'd see a beautiful, beautiful person. But you'd see wounds all over me. I've taken a lot of wounds, I can tell you. More than I suspect any president ever.
More wounds than any president, even Lincoln and Kennedy? I don't know. I would kind of dispute that. But I thought it was a strange statement. And, you know, on 4/4/2023, he's arrested. They dressed him up like Christ and on Saturday Night Live. It was all about the Christification of Trump. He had that suit chopped up into 47 pieces and auctioned off. Sort of like Jesus had his robes taken and the garments were auctioned off by the Roman soldiers. This is the Christ typology applied over Trump, and they've been doing it for some time. It's a role. You know, like Musk is Willy Wonka, and Von Braun, and Henry Ford, and Tony Stark. Well, Donald Trump is Biff Tannen, Jesus, and a few other elements in there. The Antichrist. Okay, let's continue here. Violet says they were acting like Joe Biden was acting all different when he talked after, like it was a joke. He had all this energy he didn't have. You know, I heard a podcast where they suggested that he had some medication that was slow to kick in. But whatever the case, they're done gaslighting us, pretending like he is sharp as ever and all that. Someone said Alex Berenstain. Yeah, is it Alex Berenstain or Alex Berenstein? Tominoid says this is the first presidential debate without an in-person audience since 1960. JFK and Nixon were the last candidates to debate with no live audience. Fascinating. And we talk about the fakery and the world stagery of it all. And remember, there are tons of connections between the JFK assassination and the Lincoln assassination that are all indicators that it's a script, that this is a play. It's morbid, it's a tragedy, but it has elements. I think there are elements of Macbeth on the JFK one. There's so many elements. There are elements of even Wizard of Oz figures into it. Then there's the Masonic killing of Hiram Abiff, which is all part of Donald Trump's thing too. You know, The Apprentice. The Mason's an entered apprentice before he plays the role of Hiram Abiff and takes a head wound and is resurrected. So I think Donald Trump, the apprentice, is going to be Hiram Abiff Tannen, where Biff Tannen dies after he has that role as this dictator tyrant, and then he's going to have his glorious resurrection, Revelation 13. If they go according to the script. Virtual Reality Witness says world stage character Jim Carrey is Biden, and in my opinion he wears a Biden mask. I find that hard to dispute. I don't want to believe it, but I've never seen a human face move like Joe Biden's face. Wounds all over my body comparing himself to Christ, says Nicotramus. Yes. Dinah South says he's a crooked magician and an actor. Oh yeah, Trump is a wizard. You know, he was the top media TV show, a media star, reality TV show, The Apprentice. I didn't watch it, but I read about its success, and you can kind of see how it all makes sense. It's very fitting, you know, that the world is, focused on a TV show, a TV star who's now in politics, because there isn't really a meaningful distinction. Okay, let's continue here. Truman B3000 said, I wonder what the controllers have in store for Liberty Chill on 7/4. Yeah, that could be something. Liberty Chill. And isn't that a Mountain Dew? Okay, so here's the thing. Mountain Dew is predictive programming. You had the Mountain Dew Maui Blast, as Maui was blasted with the climate change fires or Chinese space lasers or Godzilla. Whatever you think made those fires in Maui, which I don't even think they existed. Like, I think it was a movie set. They promoted the idea there was this catastrophe. No, I don't think it was real. Whether you think it's climate change or lasers, whatever it is, the conspiracy theory of the day was it was dew. It was direct energy weapons. So the Mountain Dew Maui Blast was out in stores. I walked into a Walmart and I see just floor-to-ceiling boxes of Mountain Dew Maui Blast as we're talking about Maui being hit with a dew. Then we have the dolly crashing into the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And Mountain Dew announces the Star Spangled Splash. So Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner. The bridge named after Francis Scott Key falls in the water with a splash. So now we have Liberty Chill for the 4th of July. So I'm looking at the logo here to see if it has any kind of indicators of what kind of attack we can expect. And we should be able to decode this. I see the Washington Monument, a couple of pentagrams, the Statue of Liberty on a motorcycle with an explosion behind her, and she's not wearing her crown. I don't know what else to make of it. Okay, the torch seems to be falling as well, like onto the W. So this, to me, I would say 4-7. It looks like some kind of attack on Liberty, obviously, but there's something here with the torch and the crown falling. But DC, it's going to be in DC. So just a heads up. Elephant Tusk says, have you ever watched Logan's Run? I'll have to watch it again with new eyes. It's almost like I have to watch every movie I've ever seen before I put on my auto hoaxer glasses. And I think I have watched it, but I'll have to watch it again. It's one of those older movies, but I'm sure it's predictive programming. And they all are in a broad sense. Okay, let's continue. Moped attack, says Oswaldo. That could be. I did see this video. I believe it was it Hamas? No, who was it? There were these militants on rollerblades with AK-47s, and they were using the Humvees. Like they would grab onto the bumper and yeah, I think Taliban. Yeah, Taliban patrolling the streets of Kabul on rollerblades, and it looks pretty intimidating and dangerous. But yeah, I could see mopeds being a thing. But yeah, that's liberty riding a motorcycle. And 4th of July 4-7, very important number in the greater. A couple of reasons why. Trump has the 47 on the side of his head. We had the 4-7 parade shot up by Robert Crimo, who has the 47 tattooed on his head. We're talking about the 47th president to be. The 47th Super Bowl was a blackout bowl. The 4-7 thing is pretty rich here. And I also want to point out that Trump has 45, 47 on his head. Add them. 9, 11. And 4547, or 4,547, is the 616th prime, which 616 is an antichristy number. Anyway, the numbers are all there. And also, I should point out, since we talked about the Hiram Abiff fake death in the Masonic ritual, the 47th problem of Euclid is brought up in the lecture of the Master Mason. So he's raised from the dead, and they talk about the 47th problem of Euclid. So it says here, the 47th problem teaches man how to stand in awe of God's given knowledge to man and how the sciences and arts work. So I'm just saying the number 47 is highly significant in this bigger script. So the 4th of July, 4th day of the 7th month, and again we've had this number pop up consistently with regard to this present election and Donald Trump and this scenario about the head wound. Because Robert Crimo didn't just shoot up a 4th of July parade. He had a picture of Lee Harvey Oswald on his wall. So you have this Lee Harvey Oswald obsessed sniper who had previously been spotted at Trump rallies, dressed up like Where's Waldo, with the striped sweater and hat. So I put out a live stream called Where's Oswaldo? Because I was pointing out that Lee Harvey Oswald, has been put onto the world stage. And he shot up a 4th of July, 47, Trump, 47. You see, it all kind of fits. This was the Highland Park shooter. Highland Park, Parkland High, JFK was taken to Parkland. These things are all interconnected. So this Highland Park shooting foreshadows Oswald. Then, move forward to this last Super Bowl, and it was pointed out that Brock Purdy looks like Lee Harvey Oswald. And this is significant for a few reasons, because The Weeknd did the Super Bowl performance with his head wound thing, and so we've been making this correlation here, that we're waiting for Oswald to come deliver the head wound. Interestingly, The Weeknd's name is Abel, which has a head wound kind of story built into the name, but there's this build-up. And then Brock Purdy, or Barack, like Barack Obama, you cannot separate Barack Obama from this agenda. JL26 points this out, that Barack Obama is going to be a key player in it. And if you look at the predictive programming, that does hold true. Leave the World Behind was released by Barack Obama. It was released on 11/22, the assassination date of JFK. It takes place in zip code 1963, 11963. So they have it already encoded in there. And then we have A Man in Full, which I referenced earlier, the Tom Wolfe book, and the Trump character is brought down by this Chicago mayor who's obviously based on Obama. So it's a reoccurring theme, and it's building, and it's continuing to build. Now, one more point, Liberty Chill. We've been talking about the significance of EMP, electromagnetic pulse, and the nuke. So you've got the Godzilla versus King Kong New Empire, EMP. You have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, EMP. After the EMP, after the nuke, you have nuclear winter. Winter is coming. Westeros burns. You have the snow, but it also mixes with the ashes, signifying fallout. So the theme of fallout, nuclear winter, and the frozen empire have all been connected. Even on the ISS, they made some references to snow, blizzard-like appearance of something. I'll see if I can pull that up really quick here. But the main thing is this: the reoccurring theme here of the freeze, the chill, Liberty chill. So I'm like, okay, Liberty chill could be another nuke reference. So whenever you have chill, freezing, yeah, it's probably referencing that, like dark winter, for example. Ollie Goering says, I wish I had someone in real life to talk about my research and discoveries. You mean Meatverse? Yes. And that's going to happen. Tominoid says, Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin in Batman. The Penguin's going to debut in September and will consist of 8 episodes. Notice the bad guys in the last Batman movie. You had the Riddler, who's like Q. The Penguin was brought out, which is kind of interesting. His name is Oswald Cobblepot. It looks really good, by the way. And all of these movies pertain to the news. There's no separation. The Batman-Joker dialectic has been applied to left versus right. Joker represents the oppressed, the mentally ill, the disenfranchised. In a class warfare scenario, it's pretty much rich is exploiting the poor. They're rich because the poor is being screwed. The poor is being made into clowns. So he puts on his Joker mask and he kills some rich people. The newspapers all say, kill the rich. That's one of the main themes there. He's a Marxist class warrior. And this is why Maxwell Azarello, who set himself on fire outside the Trump trial, was shown with a shirt that said, eat the rich. Because they're conveying this idea, and that's why he was against, fascists and fascist corporations. That's why there were correlations between his incineration and the burning of the stock exchange in Copenhagen. The Dragon's Tail spire, which interestingly relates to where Azarello came from. He came from St. Augustine, which was torched by Sir Francis Drake. There's been a lot of dragon stuff lately. That's why it's interesting that, okay, I even pointed this out before, that I suggested based on the scripting that when the ISS falls, it's going to be tied to the dragon. So it's kind of interesting that SpaceX is going to be involved in, yanking it down. So I wonder now, if they're going to pull it down anyway, is there still a reason for the Russians to knock it down? Or anybody for that matter. I don't know if the script is evolving, not quite sure, but I am pretty sure that Tom Cruise has to go up there before anything, before it falls. Jay Digg says House of Dragons Season 2 finale 8-4. I heard House of Dragons Season 2 is about a civil war. And the last House of Dragons season starts off with the Queen dying in childbirth, just as the Roe v. Wade leak occurred. That was intentional. That's not a coincidence. That is, and this is Year of the Dragon right now. That is not just predictive programming, that was concurrent programming. So how did the producers of House of Dragons Season 1 know to put some anti-pro-life propaganda into that episode to coincide with the leak of Roe v. Wade? That, to me, is an indication that predictive programming is all political, it's all mind control. Nothing mystical, there's no synchromysticism about it. The fact that Season 2 has a civil war and has an 8-4 finale is very interesting. But yeah, you got 2 worlds. We got the metaverse, which is our internal concept enhanced by the internet and the media. And then we have the physical world, the meatverse, the one you actually feel and live in. And most people live more as though the meatverse were the real thing. If you believe in a lot of the stuff that you can't test and verify, you're leaning heavily into the metaverse. If you're skeptical about stuff and you're kind of a realist, you're more meatverse. And it just depends on context where people are. But I think the trend is people are moving into the metaverse. That's why they want you on lockdown. You spent 2020 in the metaverse, especially if you bought into all the propaganda and the death tolls, whether you're a pro or an anti. If you weren't physically validating it and testing it and finding out how fake it was, you are in the metaverse. So what we're doing is we're moving into the meatverse. That's what the tabloid is about. That's what the press passes are for. And I'm going to kick it off here this summer. And I have a plan in a few weeks. I'm going to kick this off, and it'll be an unending series of meetups, which aren't really about scale or size, but really targeted for content creation, but really for getting information. We're talking about becoming informed non-believers, IPR deep dives. We have a pretty good plan to move forward on, and I'm going to kick it off here soon. The lawsuit was one of the things that delayed us, with good reason, but that's all the hard work is past. In fact, Goldfinch has 4 days to reply, and interestingly, he's going to be doxxed in a hacking case not related to us, completely separate. 777 says there's scripted drama between Kendrick and Drake. Yeah, that was all happening concurrently. You had the Drake stuff. You had the Burning Man on the anniversary of Waco, no less. You had the Burning Spire. And the Dragon is the title of it, or the name of it, the Dragon's Tail. So there is something there. And there are further connections to all of this as we've gone through. But let's continue through your comments. Tominoid says, don't know if twins is a thing, but the Star Wars Acolyte show is about twins. Plus, House of the Dragon has Twins Duel, Season 2, Episode 2. Diana South says, I know it was faked in the hospital I worked in. Well, no one has done a deep dive into identifying the dancing nurses. Who did the choreography? Who authorized these nurses to play with medical equipment, to push around the tables and bang on bedpans like drums and pole dance on IV posts? There was all kinds of stuff going on, and no one has any kind of idea. Oswaldo says, Season 2, Episode 1, Son for a Son assassination reference. Yeah, well, this is a theme that we've picked up on. It's not going away. And whatever people say, or, critics of, even, JL has his critics, but what they can't deny is the fact that he has been consistently calling out what we would term predictive programming, and that it has continued unabated for years. And it's consistent, and it's ridiculously accurate and focused. And so it's like, if you know the inside story, none of this stuff is surprising. It's easy to spot. And that's the difference between being initiated and being hoodwinked. The programmed are the hoodwinked. The programmed are those who accept the screen at face value. I am deprogrammed. I'm not wearing a digital veil. I'm not being programmed. I'm not being conformed under the guise of being informed. The masses are all misinformed. That is the default position. And they're operating from that position, which makes them all misinformers, aka liars. I have a manuscript I'm going to continue to work on. I'm not in a rush to publish it, but I'm writing a piece about, it's a really focused on lies and liars and what it means to be in a world filtered through a very specific perspective that is intrinsically rooted in falsehoods, built upon an edifice of lies. I mean, history is lies agreed upon, Napoleon. Media is lies agreed upon, that would be me. And we live in a collectively agreed upon mass delusion, like it or not. And I guess lies are addictive. I mean, people want to believe stuff, and the desire to believe often trumps facts. I mean, here you still have people sharing a profile of John Stossel. He must be so flattered that he's being mixed up with JFK Jr. And one of the things they do, and this is annoying, because I'm all about asking questions, but I'm more about seeking answers. There are some people who ask questions instead of seeking answers. And this is the thing that I see with truthers. So the House of the Muse says, "Who is this?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. Okay, the appearance of a question mark doesn't mean that the question is valid. There are bad faith questions. And if you're asking questions and not providing answers, then I'd have to wonder, what is your intention here? Because if you had the answers, you would provide those. You would say, hey guys, look, I found JFK Jr. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. But no, you're putting question marks, and you're asking because you're shifting the burden of proof because you don't have it. This, to me, is dishonest. The person who posted this knows this isn't JFK Jr. But they're asking the question because it's getting attention and engagement. They're gaining from it. Profiting, you could say. Increasing their social capital. Becoming a source. So my point of it is, this person is a liar. But they wouldn't think of themselves as a liar because they're on Team Truther. And truthers are some of the biggest liars on the internet. That's just a fact. Anyway, we're going to continue tomorrow. Infinite Plane Saturday open phones. I'll be in here much earlier, so you can expect open phones to last for a full 2 hours. We'll probably get a lot more callers. There's quite a lot going on, as usual, and I barely scratched the surface. So again, subscribe below to the newsletter to get the links, and we'll be continuing this conversation and many others tomorrow. This is Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. Again, click the link below and get on the newsletter because you'll also get the archives.
I'm on auto hoax and it feels so good. You just auto believe everything like I knew that you would. In my dream, you know I ain't got time, baby, for another crisis actor with soulless eyes.
My buddy and me.
Telecommunications Act of 1996.
96, y'all.
Gonna filter your eyes and scrub your mind. The weatherman, he's just another bad joke. You can be a doomed little donkey like Eeyore. I'm gonna be an auto hoax. Auto hoax, and it feels so good. Yeah. You just auto believe everything like I knew that you would. In my dreams.